I will always have a bit of a soft spot in my heart for HTC, mainly because of that awesome commercial they put out in 2009, I think. Despite being an incredible innovator in the early days of smartphones, in recent times they've found themselves struggling to catch up. Their latest phone, the HTC One A9, seems to illustrate more than ever the sort of confused state the company is in. Who is this phone for? Why does it look like an iPhone? Where was Robert Downey Jr. in the marketing for this? I miss him. So I have to get this out of the way right off the bat. When this phone came out, everyone was like, what the heck, HTC? It looks like an iPhone. I mean, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, but come on! But the thing is, HTC actually technically released an aluminum unibody phone first, the HTC One M7 in February 2013, almost exactly 3 years ago. That device also had these horizontal antenna bands to improve reception. Although the iPhone 5S, which released in September 2013, had a two-tone design on the back, there was no iPhone with an aluminum unibody and these antenna bands until the iPhone 6 launched in 2014. So HTC says that they're not copying Apple. Apple is actually copying them. Now, obviously, there are other design similarities, like the flat back where the previous ones all had curved backs, but you gotta admit, HTC has a point. They apparently think so too, as the product side for the A9 proudly points out the device has a design worth imitating. Oh, snap! Shots fired! Speaking of the physical design, let's take a look at the exterior. The device is 145.8 by 70.8 by 7.3 millimeters and weighs 143 grams or just over 5 ounces. On the front, we've got a 5-inch 1080p AMOLED display with Gorilla Glass 3, with the front-facing camera and light sensor up top, and the HTC logo and the new fingerprint reader down below. The boom sound speakers from the One M7, 8, and 9 are conspicuously absent. Strange, given that those are one of the most loved features of the One line. On the right side, we've got a volume rocker and a textured power button, which, although it's a small change, is a huge improvement in usability. On the M9, those buttons were positioned very much the same, but I was always getting one confused for the other because there was no texture on the power button. It's just like, where is it? It would have been nice to see a little notch on the volume rocker as well to differentiate the up and down buttons, but small victories. On the left side, we have the SIM card tray and the SD card slot, which can accommodate up to 200 gig cards. On the bottom, you got your speaker, micro USB port, mic, and audio jack, and on the top, we got nothing. HTC removed the infrared transmitter that we had in the M9. The back of the phone is a matte, bead-blasted aluminum and is super slippery, and I'm the type of guy that always puts super protective cases on my phone, so I was pretty scared of dropping this the whole time I was using it. It's like greased up or something. This phone's lubed up. Also on the back, of course, we have the camera, which is a much smaller design than the big lens we've come to expect on the One M phones, lending another comparison to the iPhone. Alright, that's enough. Let's look at the specs. The A9 has a Qualcomm Snapdragon 617 chipset, a lower power variant than the A10 we saw last in the One M9, an Adreno 405 GPU, 3 gigs of RAM, a 5-inch 1080p AMOLED display with Gorilla Glass 3, a 2150 mAh battery, a fingerprint reader, as well as AC Wi-Fi, NFC, and Quick Charge 2.0, and Quick Charge 3.0 actually, if you buy the 3.0 charger. The rear camera is 13 megapixels with the f2.0 aperture and has optical image stabilization and a dual-tone LED flash. The front camera is 4 megapixels but does use HTC's ultra-pixel tech, again with a f2.0 aperture. Other than the chipset, these sound pretty much like flagship specs, which sort of explains why HTC upped the price by $100. At $599 US or $649 Canadian, it occupies a space between the $900 flagships and the recent wave of cheap near flagship phones we see at around $350 to $500. Despite being at this sort of middle ground, the A9's 13 megapixel camera does best the M9's 22 megapixel shooter in some scenarios, which is good because cameras have been one of the only real problems with HTC's phones in the past couple years. The camera on this phone is still decidedly average, but shows a bit more saturation than the M9's occasional washed out look. It only shoots 1080p video, no 4K, but that really shouldn't be surprising to anyone. The Pro Camera mode returns with manual sliders for exposure, ISO, white balance, as well as the ability to shoot in RAW format. You also get hyperlapse and slow motion modes, although the latter obviously drops the resolution. Other than that, though, the camera app does stick pretty closely to the stock Android experience. And true to form, so does the rest of the phone for the most part. HTC Sense is pared down even a bit more in the A9. You've still got the Blink Feed news aggregator to the left of the home screen, the contextual app box on the home screen itself that is still kind of hit or miss, but of course you can just remove it if you want. And it's also got an excellent theme ecosystem. There are tons of cool themes to choose from, and you can just make your own by selecting wallpaper, accent color, and icon packs. I got this whole flat grayscale icon thing going on, and I like it. Also, I changed the font to Helvetica. Content looks beautiful on the AMOLED display, and there are multiple color profiles you can choose from. HTC also brought back their launch gesture, so you can tap to wake, swipe to unlock, and turn the phone horizontal and press the volume key to launch the camera. But the funny thing is, those are rendered moot by the fingerprint sensor. The camera will still launch from the gesture, but you have to present your fingerprint to do anything else with the phone, so it's kind of pointless to have those. It's either one or the other. Speaking of the fingerprint sensor, it was super snappy and never once failed to recognize my print. I was very impressed. This is in contrast to some other ones I've used on the OnePlus 2 and my own personal Galaxy S6, which periodically failed at recognition, so I don't even use it normally. So that was great to see on the A9. Speaking of snappiness, the whole UI experience was really responsive, and I never noticed a slowdown in performance, despite the A9's lower tier chipset compared to the One M9 Snapdragon 810. In the Antutu benchmark, the A9 got a relatively impressive score, falling below the M9, Sony Xperia Z5, and even the Nexus 6, but beating out the LG G4, which technically had a higher tier processor in the Snapdragon 808. So while this won't chug through 3D intensive games like a beast, in terms of day-to-day performance, you won't be disappointed. Also, battery life isn't bad at all, despite this small-ish battery. It lasted pretty much the whole day with around 20% left at the end, which may be due to the greater efficiency afforded by the Snapdragon 617's newer architecture. So I ask again, who is this phone for? Android fans who are jealous of the iPhone's look? Actually, that would be exactly the type of person who would go for this. See, this phone makes me lament why HTC is in the place that it is. They keep putting out consistently solid devices, but they can't seem to get that one killer feature that will push them back to the top. Apparently, with the One A9, they thought a design that mirrors the iPhone 6 almost to a fault was that feature, but I think we all know that it wasn't. Honestly, the minute HTC puts out a smartphone with a killer camera and or a cheapo price in the same vein as the Moto X and OnePlus X, there'll be no more excuses. People will have to admit that in terms of build quality, custom features, and just general usability, HTC still makes some dang fine phones. But for now, the A9 still represents a slightly better take on the M9 with a nice facelift, but nothing to really push users towards it rather than the other guys. What do you guys think of the A9? Have you been waiting all your life for an Android phone that's such an exquisite iPhone doppelganger? Leave a comment below. Alright, that's it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching. Click here to watch more videos. Follow us on social media over here. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this from NCIX. And now, I forgot to write an outro. So I'm just gonna stand here awkwardly for a little bit. Maybe you can click a video or just continue to stare at me, because that's not weird. Ooh, okay, I can't take it. I gotta go.